I was applying for jobs, getting help from my parents to pay for my apartment that I couldn't get out of, and feeling like the spoiled middle-class child. You know, you can't do anything for yourself. And God was like, but you're here now. So I started to get clients. I got some writing gigs. I saw some of the biggest opportunities in my life start to come to fruition. I just had to keep working, keep figuring things out. But I had my biggest opportunities come when I had already quit on myself, and I was looking for my escape route. And God was like, nah, we still got some things to do.
Hey everybody, I'm Zeplyn Tillman.
And I'm Aaron Landrum.
Welcome to the Soul and Success Podcast, a show for millennials featuring top leaders, influencers, and musicians, bringing you the best content about how creating and maintaining a healthy soul leads to success. On today's show, we discuss restoring your confidence with Michell Clark.
Oh, that's me.
Michell is a DMV-based writer, entrepreneur, and influencer. Also co-founder of Views from the Grits, founder of Artistic Manifesto, a discovery platform for up-and-coming music. And Michell, just let the people know who you are.
Appreciate you, man. I think first and foremost, I am a lover of pizza, nap time, good hip-hop music, and, you know, getting these dreams out. I am DC-based. I'm a cultural curator and an influencer, all those things. And I've been self-employed for like 14 months now.
Shout out.
Which feels crazy. I feel very old. I've probably aged about 10 years in these past 14 months. I'm a lover of all things communication, which led me to social media and kind of finding my voice on there. But yeah, those are kind of the high points, and I'm sure we'll kind of cover more things through these questions and these conversations, and I mean?
Absolutely. So Michell, big homie, thank you again for joining us. We started this podcast because, you know, as young brothers, man, we kind of realized that these mainstream conversations about success, conversations about our soul, you know, not necessarily related to religion, but just like this overall bettering of us being better as people, doing better as people, they're not mainstream conversations. You know, we wanted to make sure that we had these that could, you know, speak to our reality. This first segment is called Mood because, you know, when you're trying to get something popping right, you got to make sure that mood is right, you know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? You feel that? So,
the vibe,
right, you know what I mean? So I'm going to go ahead and get into this quote, and then we'll talk about, you know, how this feels and allow this to segue into the greater conversation. Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine came out with a documentary called The Defiant Ones on HBO that detailed their lives and their respective journeys. So they talked about everyone from Pac, Gwen Stefani, Bruce Springsteen, Snoop, Eminem, I mean, just all the legends. And there was this part with Dre where, you know, we all know he had success with NWA, then he left, then he goes solo. And in 1992, Dr. Dre took about a year to finish that classic, you know, the Chronic. And after he was done, he went to New York, and he already lived in LA, but he went to, you know, these major cities to shop the record to every major record label. And they all told him no. They said they didn't want to deal with him. Dr. Dre said some of the companies were saying they didn't want to deal with the situation I was in as far as Ruthless Records and the contracts, and that Eazy-E and Jerry Heller trying to starve me and get me to come back on my hands and knees. And I started second guessing myself. Is it possible that what I think is good isn't good because everybody is telling me it's not working? You know, so I love this as an intro because, you know, here we have Dre, arguably the greatest hip hop producer, you know, saying he was second guessing himself, you know, losing confidence in that ability, you know, because of external forces. You know, so Michell, brother, can you kind of, you know, give us your thoughts on this quote and, you know, why do we allow outside people and outside no's to sometimes get us down, and, you know, how the hell do we snap out of that?
So to speak on that from a very personal place, I definitely understand what he's saying with this quote, and it's kind of easy to look at where he is now, worth so much money with these different companies and this legacy, and kind of wonder how he could even think that about himself when he was going through these things. But the thing is, when you're going through certain trials and tribulations that are a result of, to a certain extent, your own goals, you're setting for yourself. Like, it's not like he was working a regular job and something happened with the job. He was trying to accomplish exceptional things and to build things for himself. And that was causing him to have all this pushback from people and this pressure from external forces. So when you're going through experiences like this, when you have issues and struggles, it could be financial, could be emotional, could be social, that are essentially due to the choices you made to step outside of what's the norm or what's the easy path for you. Yeah, you definitely question a lot of what you experience due to those choices, because you definitely said to yourself, like, man, this could be so much easier. I could find so much more stability in other scenarios, but you know, I'm here struggling, eating ramen noodles, you know, broke, like not sleeping enough, like losing friends, like
all that,
losing support of family members and things like that. And you start to wonder, you know, do these experiences, these things that I'm going through, will they ever actually pay off? Like, cause you don't always know if the things you experience are going to actually, you know, pay off in the way you want them to.
Obviously, Dre was like young when he was going through this, and I think just as millennials and our generation, we're always, you know, eager to step out and to try to build and create something that isn't something that we currently see, but obviously like can definitely impact your ability to be confident in yourself. I think it's something that, you know, a lot of people in our generation deal with, and what's really at the core of restoring your confidence or even losing it. For us, the conversation really came back to like, well, what underlies confidence in the first place, you know? So like when you get shook, I think it's easy to feel like, you know, like I should be confident in this moment. And so like Dre is like, yo, I know my stuff is good, but why does he know that? And I think that's really like the question we want to get to is like, what underlies the confidence, and then how do you undergird that to make sure it doesn't get, every little thing doesn't, you know, push you off the path?
I think that I always have moments during every phase of my professional career in my life where I question myself, but I would dare say that I've gotten to a point where I believe that, you know, I could fail at my next 10 endeavors, and my next party could have a total of 5 attendees, and, you know, I could lose all my Twitter followers, you know, whatever is supposed to be the defining metric of my success.
Right.
But I know for a fact that I've been through enough scenarios that should have broken me entirely, and I've pushed through those scenarios, and I refuse to quit. Like I might take a break, I might sit down for a bit, but I know for a fact that I know where I want to be. I know what my passions are. I know God has me. So, you know, the setbacks are setbacks, but I know they're not going to stop me forever. Being able to know that essentially is me choosing my destination for myself and saying that, yeah, it might not be easy, but I know for a fact that I'm going to keep pushing no matter what. And whether I'm 35 or 65, I'm going to get there.
Yeah,
you know,
so that's super dope too, because I feel like a lot of the times we kind of pinpoint this idea to time related to where we're at in our life. Like, right, we've all set these sort of expectations that said that by this age I want to accomplish this. It's interesting. I was having this conversation with one of my friends earlier this week, and she was like, you know, our expectations don't have that same forgiveness that we actually should have in humanity, right? So it's like we've said that we want to accomplish something by 27, 28, and when we haven't done it, we don't forgive ourselves because there are expectations, and in reality, we should. I forget what project it was, but J. Cole has this amazing line where he's like, you know, I'm getting better, but I wasn't getting any younger, and even that can make the most confident person wonder. And that's a huge part of it. It's like, you know, we have these expectations based on our age, but, you know, everybody's journey is everybody's journey. And so, you know, not allowing that to kind of get you down or make you lose confidence just because these expectations that you had.
So part of that mentality, you know, why am I not here yet? Why am I still, you know, in this spot when I want to be all the way up there with so-and-so? I think a big part of it comes from, of course, social media.
Oh, yeah.
Which gets blamed for so many things. Yeah. But we tend to, of course, we find success stories and we magnify and amplify those and put certain people, you know, on pedestals and say, oh, this is amazing, without considering, you know, how long they were working to get there, and the fact that, you know, some people's stories and careers kind of get set up more than others. Doesn't mean that, you know, whatever we have in mind for our own path is not important, but it's just a fact. Like, some people find their calling at 25, some might find it at 45, but whenever you find it, you find it.
Yeah. Some big points and kind of takeaways just for this like part right here that I'm kind of pulling out is like understanding that everybody is on their own path and not allowing external forces to get in the way of that. You know, Dre didn't talk about it in the quote, but I would imagine if he's maybe looking at his other counterparts and what they have going on. I mean, he just left NWA, so we don't know what Easy and they're doing, and maybe he's looking at that and being like, yo, it's still rocking for them, and it's not,
Right.
you know what I mean? So like putting those blinders on to a certain extent, like racehorses, so you're not looking at the left and the right, and you're not, you know, allowing other people's success, which is tough on social media. I mean, if we're keeping it 100% real, it's at our fingertips to look at what our counterparts are doing.
Absolutely.
And that's really tough. I mean, I struggle with that myself, and I'm like,
yeah, I think we all struggle, and we all, of course, like we put what we want people to know on social media. Even if you are vulnerable, you're still gonna only put certain things on there. 100%. So there's always the line about comparing your life to somebody else's highlight reel. And I think that we probably all feel that at certain points.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can never see somebody's full story unless we're that person.
Also, too, like, for me, like, Zeplyn knows that I don't really stay on Facebook because of exactly that. I realized that it was making me feel less than. In reality, it wasn't, like, really building me up. So I try to find things that do. And part of that is, you know, the community that I have around me. In what ways does, you know, the people that you have in your life, or, like, the settings that you put yourself in, play a role in making sure that, you know, you're staying confident in your dreams and, you know, the things that you're trying to get?
Oh, it's humongous. It's probably one of the biggest things. Having the right people in your life, people who have similar dreams and similar goals, people who will encourage you on your path, people who will give you the right kind of feedback. Like, you don't want everybody just saying, oh, you're doing amazing, it's fantastic, when you could be doing something better.
100%.
So those who can give you, you know, actual valid critiques. I'll be honest, I don't want all critiques. I don't want somebody who has no experience in anything that I do saying, well, why didn't you do this? You don't even know what I even do.
Yeah.
And that's no shade to somebody else, but it's more about what I can and cannot accept.
And we get that from family too, by the way. Like, family is huge
don't
for giving that sort of advice, right?
Yeah.
It's like they never even thought about going down that path, but yet they're an expert when it comes to the advice they give you.
So yeah, I would say those are important things, and you gotta find ways to filter out negative sources of energy and sources of doubt. Some people can kind of, whether by accident or on purpose, project their own fears and issues and struggles into your thought process and make you question more than you have to question. You know, I have enough doubts in my own head. I don't need you adding more. I'll be entirely transparent when it comes to that. So yeah, keeping those good people around you.
I got you. So this next segment that we have, this segment is called "What's Really Good." You know what I'm saying? What's really good?
What is really good?
You know, what this does is it allows us to kind of get more into the topic and try to get some answers of, you know, why we do what we do, what's really good with our actions, and try to work through some of these personal problems. And I'm glad that, you know, we have three brothers in here, because there's this perception sometimes that, as you know, black men, we're all hard and tough, and that losses, letdowns, and setbacks, you know, that they don't affect us. And that's just not the reality. You know, I know in my own personal life, recently I lost a business partner and went through a breakup all in the same week recently. You know what I'm saying? Like, in both of these individuals, I have poured a lot into, you know, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And, you know, I'm in my room as a grown man, just like, you know, shuffling through Drake lyrics, trying to find ones that match
Marvin's room,
you know
nonstop.
match my emotions, going to bed at, you know, 9 p.m. just because, like, I don't even want to stay up. I just kind of want to sleep. And it's like, you have these moments sometimes you wake up, you're like, yo, like, why do I suck? Like, why did I do something? Like, it's like, you know, all those sorts of things. And like I said, this is me as a grown man. And so I see this as two sides of kind of this restoring confidence piece, right? On the one hand, it's like nothing is working. You're hearing these no's, you're applying for jobs, you're getting these dumb, you know, we appreciate your application, but want to inform you rejection letters, right? You started a business and you can't get clients, or, you know, people, the decision makers you can't get through to. So you're doing the things you're supposed to do, but you're getting the no's. That's not working. So then that's one part of it. But then the other part of it is that you lost something that you thought, or that was extremely valuable to you. Job, pay, money, you know, so you start to question your ability in that sort of scenario. So how do you work through these things? And they obviously have different approaches, but I want our audience to get a real takeaway from some of these tangible action items. You know, when life just kind of comes and uppercuts you, like that bus driver did that girl a couple years ago, and just, you know what I'm saying, just throws you off. It's like when life comes and smacks you around, how do you approach it from these angles?
I mean, I think the first thing is you just gotta sit down and just be in that moment and, like, you know, get your teeth back in place. Everybody got that in place. Allow yourself to actually just sit there and fully feel that uppercut or that life blow or whatever it might be. I've made the mistake in the past with whether it was a relationship or professional struggle or, you know, whatever other emotional thing that might have happened. I've made the mistake in the past of trying to push past it and, nah, man, I'm good. I got this. We straight. We good to go, you know, and try to push past it without actually absorbing the way that I feel about it and taking time to think to myself about why I feel that way, how I can actually move past it instead of just trying to push it into a corner somewhere and it kind of comes back and manifests in different relationships and different scenarios and things like that. So I think the first and probably the most important thing is just to sit your ass there and feel it, whatever that hit might have been. From there, being able to know who you can talk to, maybe constructive advice, you know, how to actually improve a situation versus emotional support. Sometimes like it's not logical, but you just need somebody to be like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, because those dark moments, I don't know if y'all struggle with depression or things like that. These mental roadblocks, they're not due to logic. It's like really because, you know, we have issues and some things we have to work past. So being able to have somebody who can just tell you like, it's gonna be all right. Let's get some food. Let's get a drink. Let's go out somewhere and kind of, you know, push past these things.
Really quickly though, why do you feel like we don't necessarily go and seek that sometimes? Like a lot of times we kind of want to be to ourselves, even though the right thing is to kind of go and be around other energy. Like why is it that we sometimes want to be reclusive?
I think being reclusive is definitely valuable, but you can't be in that forever.
Right.
For me personally, when I have like a major uppercut in my life, I tend to pull into myself first and foremost, and then try to kind of go back out when I'm ready, because I know how I get, I know how I am, I know how I feel. I just want to be alone and watch Netflix and turn my phone off. So I do. But I think just not sticking to that forever is important. Like, you know, at some point you got to get back out there. You got to check in with your friends, see what's going on, and be able to receive the good energy.
What I'm hearing is this, it's almost like you're able to shift your perspective. I want to talk about this because how do you all feel about this idea of, okay, you went through this scenario, you went through this thing, but you kind of now, you know, maybe you lost your confidence a little bit, but then that allowed you to establish a higher level of confidence that you started with in that perspective shift. And I know that when we talk, you've had some of your own personal life experiences, right? That I kind of really want you to touch on, because it was a journey for you to get to where you are right now. And a journey means ups, it means downs, it means things coming from left and right that you didn't know. And I think that people being able to hear some of your story is going to be impactful for them, and just say, oh, it just didn't start with being able to write for some of these top blogs, being honored by Puff and DeLeon, right? Like it didn't just start with you having one of the hottest events in DC. You started somewhere.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of talk about some of those earlier beginnings and how you were sideswiped a little bit, in that, you know, that could have messed with your confidence, or it did?
Man, I wasn't sideswiped. I had like a head-on collision.
See?
And like they threw me off the bridge and left me to die. And I kind of got up and, you know, rebirthed myself. I will start by saying that by all accounts, if you would have asked me in 2011 what my career would be, none of this would have been even remotely possible. I was a cadet at the military academy, also known as West Point, very prestigious school. My father, my uncle, my cousins all went there. And I was there, and I was doing pretty well. I did almost 4 years. I got expelled, and I left West Point 3 weeks before I should have graduated. I spent 4 years there almost, getting up early as hell, wearing uniforms, being part of the 6% black population at West Point, just dealing with a lot of isolation. And like you're talking about questioning yourself, try being up there by yourself, like going through all these different things.
Wow.
It also made me more of a man. It taught me how to push past certain setbacks until I kind of got hit with the biggest 1-2 punch of my life. I made some big mistakes. I got accused of lying, and I was found in a bed with the girl, which is a huge offense at West Point. And I had to go back home and explain to my super Christian family what the hell happened, why I got expelled from the school that I spent 4 years at, and what I was going to do with my life, because I really had no idea. So for the 6 months leading up to my expulsion, of course at West Point you wear military rank for almost the entire time you're on campus. And when you get in trouble, they pull that rank off. So I was walking around with like no rank. Like,
Wow.
boy, you no class having. It was just like everybody could see it. So I kind of got pushed away from a lot of people. I had been the president of the gospel choir, and the church family that I thought would be there for me was kind of nowhere to be seen. And so I finally got home. I was just like, I was happy to be out for one thing, but I had just so much emotional baggage to unpack, and I really just didn't know what I was going to do. So I had to really just take some time and rebuild myself. And for the very first time, I figured out what I actually wanted to do with my life. I was definitely wrong. So I thought I was going to run my hip hop blog, Artistic Manifesto, and make all this money. But ain't no money in blogging in 2017. The streaming services took over. But I did figure out the field that I want to get into. I figured out what my actual passions are. Hint, my actual passions are not being in the military. I don't have the best skill set for it. I don't have the best mentality for it. I'm very much so an independent thinker. So what ended up happening was I left, I went home, I worked for about 6 months. I went to VCU, and I'm a full-time social entrepreneur now. I started planting those seeds that I'm still using to this day with my various income streams now. That was definitely one of the biggest setbacks, failures, traumatic experiences of my life. But it allowed me to hone back in on my passions, discover my purpose really for the first time. When I was 22, 23, had already been through a lot, did a lot of work.
I really commend you for not living somebody else's life. Even when you had a situation that knocked you off the bridge, you took that situation and questioned yourself about, like, what does my journey look like?
Absolutely.
That's something that, like, I really appreciated, because I'm dealing with that now, is trying to figure out, well, what does my journey look like, my life look like? Not my parents, not my friends, not any of that, but like what's at the core of me. So
and like not what just sounds great on paper, but what actually makes the most sense for who you are, and like what you actually truly want to do. Maybe it's not what sounds the best on paper. My experience with that probably came after I quit my job in summer 2016. I only really quit my job. So I'll go back and say that, I found my purpose after being expelled. I didn't choose to be expelled. I didn't ask for that, but there I was. So the positive point of that experience was me finding my purpose. Then with my next experience, I really kind of found, like, people always talk about like grit and hustle and stuff like that. That's when I really dug in and like kind of found the mentality that is allowing me to do what I do right now. So I worked for a company called the Princeton Review, test prep for the SAT, ACT, all them acronyms, all those different tests and everything else. So I was a brand ambassador. I was kind of feeling myself, because I didn't have a master's degree. I was the only person in the office who didn't. And I was the youngest person in the office. I was out there, I was a brand ambassador, so I was speaking to different schools and just giving presentations and, wearing suits, being extra fancy with croissants and everything. I did it for almost 2 years. And, sales were down across the entire company and the whole industry, because test prep doesn't matter as much anymore. So my boss called me in for progress report. I was talking about, I went to this school, I did these things. And she's like, yeah, so actually, I got to put you on this performance plan. And actually, if you don't meet these sales goals, these new sales goals, we're probably gonna fire you. She gave me like some goals, like the entire region must raise their sales by 10%. I'm one person. So I'm listening to this, and at that point I was the most experienced salesperson. I was helping bring in new people. I was filling in the office in different spots when they needed help on the admin side. So I was like, word? And like, I didn't snap on her, but I kind of snapped that day in regards to my mentality. I was kind of like, if I can play it safe here and clock in, and I'm still not safe, then why the hell am I still here? Like, I have so many different things that I want to accomplish. So I made MichellCClark.com. I started building my curriculum. I got reached out to about a couple of different contract jobs, and I left my job about a month after that meeting happened. Yeah, that is the point when I really went through my biggest, it probably was about even with the expulsion period. So I didn't get no clients for the first month. I thought I was going to be a social media coach. I got no clients, no money being made. So I had a huge lack of confidence at that point. After like taking this jump, I was kind of like talking to myself like, you definitely could have just stayed there and stuck it out, tried to get unemployment, started beating myself up, and I stopped finding solutions. I stopped, actually trying to better my situation, because it was like nothing was working. Like I was, writing content to attract the right people. I was, networking my ass off. I was trying to go to events and
everything you're supposed to do.
And people would be like, oh yeah, let's talk about this. Oh, so what do you do? Oh, so can you show me what you would do if you were working with me? And can you give me a pitch deck? And no, I'm still good. Like, so you spend all this time trying to bring in clients and it's still not working. Like you start getting questions from your parents, like, yo, there's money though. Like you start getting questions from friends, like, so what are you actually doing? And you start questioning everything once again. And it actually didn't turn around until after I was starting to apply for jobs again. I started figuring out how to get more clients. I started getting some influencer contracts and things slowly started turning around. But at that point, I'd already quit on myself and I'd already given up, to be honest, to be transparent. I had kind of said, you know what, maybe this is not where I'm meant to be. I don't know what God's saying right now. I was applying for jobs, getting help from my parents to pay for my apartment that I couldn't get out of, and feeling like the spoiled middle-class child. You can't do anything for yourself. And God was like, but you're here now. So I started to get clients. I got some writing gigs. I saw some of the biggest opportunities in my life start to come to fruition. I just had to keep working, keep figuring things out. But I had my biggest opportunities come when I had already quit on myself and I was looking for my escape route. And God was like, nah, we still got some things to do.
Wow.
That's what's up.
Thank you for sharing that. So to kind of bring out some of these key points and highlights from this section, figuring out what just happened and kind of getting clear on that scenario, that's very important to kind of do. Just like get clear, figure out what it is, am I learning from this? I know in both stories, it kind of just seemed like you took time with yourself and you dissected and went through, okay, this works, this doesn't work. And something else, and you didn't say it, but even with Artistic Manifesto, as well as once you kind of took the entrepreneur jump, it seems like you got surrounded by a community of people. You know what I mean? Which is what you said earlier, being around that right energy and a right group of people is extremely important to kind of restoring confidence piece, and then being honest with yourself about what you've learned from all of your experience and then charting a course to move forward. All of those things are extremely important when you talk about restoring that confidence when you've gone through a tough situation.
This next segment is called It's a Vibe. Really curious what music you listen to restore your confidence, when you're down or when you feel out. What do you turn to?
Everything. And I mean, I'm a music head, a music lover. So I think it just depends on the mood. I love like certain Kirk Franklin songs. So I always grew up hearing them. So like one, it reminds me of church. Even though I don't be going, I should go to church more, but I just don't. I'm not gonna lie to you. We being honest here. But like hearing, certain Kirk Franklin songs, certain praise and worship songs is kind of a uplifting type of feeling. But then I want to go to the gym and I want to hear some Meek Mill. I want to hear some T Grizzly. I want to hear some more aggressive, like type Funkmaster Flex type stuff. Kind of get the blood flowing some. It just depends on the mood.
That's what's up.
Absolutely.
What about you, Zep?
Man, y'all don't judge me, all right? So I'm gonna put this disclaimer out right now. Please do not judge me. I'm
leaning in right now.
Right. You know what it is, and I think that there's kind of like this nostalgia of wanting to go back to a quote unquote easier time when things were just like really like you didn't have any worries or cares. Not that worries and cares are bad, but now, and that for me is growing up. I turn to like those classic motivational Disney R&B pop songs, what I'm saying?
Sing one though.
I ain't doing all that.
You gotta sing it.
I'll give you some titles, you know what I'm saying? But like that a goofy movie like Stand Out or like Eye to Eye, you know what I'm saying?
You
like
singing that Mulan song?
Yeah, the Mulan. I'll make a man out of you. That joint, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's like that. I'll be,
Do you like the choreography in the shower too?
I don't do the I don't do the the choreography, you know what I'm saying? But I may or may not. I may or may not know all the lyrics at any given time. You know what I'm saying? Time is race. No, I'm joking. All
that
right,
should be a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
You just keep singing Disney songs.
Yeah, but like, you know, I think that you know, that's one. But then, you know, right afterwards, I might turn on some fur, you know, some plain Jane, you know what I mean? Like ride with the mob, hum do a lot, you know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
It's like I kind of go back and forth, almost like what you said, between depending on the mood. But I will find sometimes going, you know, that nostalgia type feeling and going back to some of those classic joints and just kind of, you know, when things were a good time to kind of reposition and, you know, rethink about, let's get back to that peaceful state.
That's
you ever just be like by yourself, like just singing 90s R&B? Me neither, but
yeah.
I do it.
Yeah, what about you, Aaron? What you on, man?
I was not expecting you to say that.
Nah.
Two joints, Owl Farrell by Travis Scott. One of my boys put me onto it when I was graduating from college. I really go to that whenever I need to get my energy up and just be like, you know what, whatever anyone else is saying, I know what I'm good at. I know what I got to do to get to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other joint is We Are King, their first EP that they released.
They be saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's something about like no matter what's going on in my life, whenever go back to that, I think it's really like their vibe is so positive, and it always kind of sets me back to my level, kind of like what you were saying with kind of going back to, you know, just thinking about where you were as a child when you were and consuming those movies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I'm gonna add one more thing too. Talking about music, I think that really over the past, it's probably been 2+ years. Project called Hours Spent Loving You by used to be Spazzy Rocket, now he's Xavier Omar, and Sango produced it.
Dope.
And it's probably the most peaceful 6-track listen you will ever hear. Very futuristic sound.
Yep.
Xavier has just some really like expressive types of vocals.
Wow.
And he'll like sing about like real life things. And it's very, very soothing, calming project. So I play that probably at least once a week to this day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to relax and just mellow out and exfoliate my skin and stuff, you know.
Nah, man, that's real. And Michell, thank you so much for joining us, man. You know, this was a pleasure. This was super dope. Do you have any final takeaways for the audience, for anybody who's struggling with that piece of kind of being down right now, whether it's, you know, they're in college and they are applying for jobs and all their peers and have jobs and it's just not working for them, or, you know, new entrepreneurs or people who may have just gone through a couple losses, a couple breakups, and, you know, they're starting to kind of get down on themselves, or they already are down on themselves. Do you have any final takeaways about, like, I know it's tough, but, you know, try these things right here. It may not solve all your problems, but it'll definitely get you headed in that right direction.
Before I even go into that, thank you to both of you for having me.
Sure.
I love having talks like this. I had extra honey in my tea. It was incredible. In regards to your question, one thing I try to tell people, if it ever does come up, or I just try to think about, is the fact that there really is a first time for everything. So when you go through these down points in your story, these negative turns, these struggle periods, and like even if you've already, whether you're looking for a job, you're trying to make your own money, you know, whatever you want to do, that there is a first time when what you want to happen will happen. And that first time can still come. You have to push for it. It might not come when you want it to, but you never expect when your breakthrough happens, and it can still happen. So not to resign yourself to expect what has been happening thus far, and not to feel like you have to keep doing what you're doing. You can change your methods, you can see different results, it's all possible. You just have to remember that and kind of remain just really agile with what you're doing, be able to switch things up, and that change will come.
One last question we want to ask you is
no more questions.
In like one word or phrase, what is soul to you?
I think I would just say that soul is truth. It is every part of you that you know or believe to be true, every part of you that resonates, whether it's being seen as something worthwhile or important to the rest of the world, that's kind of whatever, but it's a part of you.
Very dope, very dope.
Thanks again for having me. Anybody wants to find me, I'm on Twitter, Instagram at MichellC Clark, MichellCClark.com. Same thing. Thanks again.
All right.